To the Rye Town Council meeting of February 16th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage, grant us the wisdom to make every decision fair-minded and the best interest for all its residents. Amen.
Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Pamela Jaffrey. Here. Councilperson Jill Axelrod.
Here.
Councilperson Thomas Nardi.
Here.
Councilperson Lindsay Jackson.
Here.
And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Here. First item of business is adoption of the minutes of January 16th of 2023. If there are no additions, corrections, I would appreciate a motion and a second.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to open a public hearing on local law number 1 of 2023, an act to grant partial tax exemption from Town of Rye real estate taxes for certain persons with disabilities and income limits. Motion and a second, please.
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is open. This is a companion to an earlier local law that we passed, increasing exemption limits for senior citizens of a who are below a certain income level. This is in compliance with an act of the legislature passed last year, which permits us to increase the partial exemption up to 50% when if a person with a disability, as set forth in the statute, earns less than $50,000, and that goes. It's a sliding scale down to 5% if somebody earns up to $58,400. So this is as I say, is a companion to the senior citizen exemption, same income limits. And we have it, pardon me, in 2 separate sections of the law. Am I correct, Hope?
Yes. And there's not a limit on the age. This is.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
The other one is age limited. This is disabilities, which is defined in the law. Are there any comments from the public?
No.
Such a surprise. Any comments from the board? May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is closed. Resolution approving local law number 1. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Seconded.
Please call the roll, Hope.
Councilperson Jaffe.
Aye.
Councilperson Axelrod.
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi.
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes, thank you. And now we have a special attraction. Peter Schlachtis of the Airport Advisory Board and a resident of Rye Brook is going to give us a Westchester County Airport update.
Thank you. Attraction, distraction, we shall see. No, thank you for the opportunity to address you. I apologize that I haven't done so sooner because needless to say,
We're always here, Peter.
no, I'm not.
We're always here.
That's why I'm apologizing to you. You know, the Westchester County Airport has as great an impact on our town as it does on the constituent villages and the wider county community. And let's just be clear, the airport is not just a local issue. It's the third largest airport in New York State, or the third busiest airport in New York State. It is larger in area than LaGuardia Airport. It's got a runway that's longer than Chicago Midway. So it has plenty of potential to be even busier than it is. And if that weren't enough, it lies essentially directly adjacent to the largest source of drinking water of this entire region, including drinking water that supplies our town. The Kensico Reservoir gathers water from 6 upstate reservoirs in the New York City system, and it funnels that water down to New York City, passing through southern Westchester on the way, and that water is used by millions of residents of Westchester in New York City. So anything that happens to the reservoir is not, is incredibly impactful to all of us from a public health perspective and from an economics perspective. And, God forbid if there were a real disaster in the reservoir, and unfortunately we had a bit of a reminder of the fact that that's not unthinkable just a few weeks ago, tragically, with the small plane that went down, yards away from the reservoir. That water is currently unfiltered. It's the largest public water system in the country that is unfiltered. And we'd be talking about a multi-billion dollar project that would impact taxes and the economy to fix a problem. And unfortunately, so number one, the airport is, it's a convenience. It's an economic driver for the region. It certainly is an amenity that, all local governments and residents around here recognize. But it could never be built legally where it is today, and it poses unique environmental as well as public health threats that all parties associated need to be kept mindful of. And in my experience, which sadly now is 15 years of watchdogging the airport, sometimes more actively, sometimes less, I've learned that there are, of course, always interests that seek to grow the airport, grow the operations at the airport, and there needs to be checks and balances. Because one thing you can absolutely rely on is that an airport, if you build it, you must let them come. The FAA does not permit do-overs. Oh, that hangar was too big. Oh, that terminal has too many gates. Oh, we're unhappy now with the resulting air traffic and everything that emanates from that. Tough luck. You can't undo anything that happens at the airport, or at least it is an incredibly difficult thing to manage. So the challenge has always been, and the county has recognized it, to manage facilities and infrastructure at the airport in a way that keeps a lid on unchecked growth. And there certainly have been successes in that regard. We have a terminal use regulation, right, which is a county law that limits commercial airline traffic at the airport.
Excuse me, Peter, it's an agreement. The terminal use agreement.
So there are thank you, Supervisor Zuckerman. It's important to distinguish between the terminal airport agreements and the terminal airport procedures law. There were terminal airport agreements for decades. Because even before our current terminal, there was a small, Quonset hut, it was called. And the Quonset hut was truly limited in what it could, and it was stretched to the limits. And as a result, there were terminal use agreements with airlines so that no airline would unfairly use up the resources of the terminal. Because of things like that, the county was able to pass a local law in 2005, I want to say, or thereabouts, codifying the principles of those agreements and making it a legal requirement that airlines continue to sign terminal use agreements with the airport going forward. Those terminal use agreements are all set to expire at the end of next year, which doesn't negate the law, which would require presumably other agreements, but it does set up a very, unfortunate dynamic where the county's going to be, trying to negotiate with all the airlines essentially at the same time. The airlines have leverage, the county has leverage, and we'll have to see what happens. But, it's something to keep an eye out for. So that does limit, that agreement, that law limits the use of the airport by commercial airlines, but except for about 70, 80 days a year around the holidays, which is why sometimes around the holidays we notice the airport gets kind of crazy. That's because the airlines purposefully ignore the terminal capacity of the terminal capacity, and since they're not bound by those terminal use agreement limitations, they schedule more activity in the airport than the terminal is really designed to handle. Sidebar. The rest of the airport, 85% of what happens more or less at the airport is private, corporate, charter, air taxi, all kinds of non-commercial aviation that is unlimited except for what the safe carrying capacity of airport infrastructure can hold. Okay, so, and again, we've got a huge runway, there's a lot of facilities already at the airport, which is why the county legislature in 2003 passed a resolution declaring it the policy of the county and of the legislature to not expand facilities at the airport. Now keep in mind, none of us can control the airplanes that go in and out. The FAA has, at the federal level, there are laws that remove local control from that. We don't control the airspace. We can't close the airport at night, which is why there's only a voluntary curfew in place. Although I would argue that there are certainly still tools available to the county to incentivize operators to respect that voluntary curfew more so than is currently happening. And I'm glad to say that the county, in my role on the Airport Advisory Board, the County Airport Advisory Board, we just received a report on steps the county is taking to use at least some of those tools. And there are some hopeful initial signs there. But the county passed this resolution, the county legislature passed this resolution, hasn't always been adhered to or respected, but it is a bench line. It is something that many residents have relied on in purchasing homes near the airport. Yes, we all knew there was an airport there, but yes, there's been a longstanding county policy against airport expansion, which gives everyone the right, including local municipalities, to speak out in favor of the notion of maintaining that non-expansion posture. But again, what the county can control is the building and upgrading and expanding or not expanding of all the facilities at the airport. The gates, the terminals, the private terminals, the hangars, et cetera. And certainly, of course, the runways, taxiways, et cetera, and parking. All of this goes in to how many planes can ultimately take off and land at the airport. And just to be clear, compared to a couple of years ago, obviously there's a lot more traffic coming in and out of the airport, but we had a pandemic. The interesting thing is, even compared to just before the pandemic, there is now more traffic coming in and out of the airport. You can go back and find a time when there were more planes and flights in and out of Westchester, if you go back enough years. But the evidence suggests that at that time, the average size and therefore impact of the planes on communities was considerably smaller than now. The private aviation, commercial airlines are using bigger planes, significantly bigger planes. private aviation, private jets are growing exponentially. And that has, and even with positive progress on technology, that has, that has changed the soundscape for people under the flight path. Okay, where am I going with this? It is, number one, it is important that local government, as well as local community groups, in my view, be heard on this issue. Not because the county is plotting anything awful. The county is I think, very sympathetic to our concerns, environmental concerns, community concerns, et cetera. But the county has to answer to a lot of constituencies and a lot of stakeholders. And if those of us who want a balanced and conservative approach taken to airport development don't speak out, then those who want to aggressively further develop the airport, they're the only ones with the megaphones. So with that, I want to point out that the town of Newcastle passed a resolution in December noting that the state approved the Bond Act, the Environmental Bond Act, in this fall, the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Bond Act, and that the goals of that referendum, essentially, are incompatible, sustainable, more sustainable and environmentally friendly clean air, clean water goals are fundamentally incompatible with expanding operations at an airport that is 85% private aviation, which pound for pound is one of the least sustainable, most polluting, most impactful activities that we humans have figured out how to do. And then secondarily, asking the county to tap into the resources of that Bond Act to enable greater mitigation projects at the airport and elsewhere in the county to further those goals for the benefit of our residents. And I want to encourage you to stand with the town of Newcastle and hopefully other municipalities that I and others are bringing this to their attention, and essentially help the county balance, balance the input that it's getting, and to do the right thing. Secondarily, I'm asking that the town consider forming an airport advisory committee, perhaps modeled after similar committees either in the town of Newcastle or in the village of Rye. I chair, as you know, the Rye Village Committee, and it would be, I think, very easy to coordinate a town committee and a village committee. It would ensure that you are kept informed and are able to take suitable action on airport-related issues that affect your constituents. It's wonderful that you have a sustainability committee. All the good work that sustainability committee does can easily get swallowed up with one bad decision at the airport. So I want to offer, on my own behalf, to help coordinate resources between the village and the town to make it as easy as possible, to the extent that the village has model legislation, model procedures, et cetera. The same, those could be put at the disposal of the town. And, once the town nominates people to such a committee, the town committee and the village committee could work together. That said, the town, of course, would ultimately you would make your own decisions, the village would make its own decisions, and, the town committee and the village committee wouldn't have to agree on everything either. So those are the two concrete suggestions I wanted to make. I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have, whether it be on the airport master plan revision process, which is which is ongoing but likely to reactivate in the coming weeks, or the millionaire private hangar proposal, lawsuit, and environmental impact statement that, by the way, I can tell you that the county announced that just earlier today that they had received a 75-day extension on the public comments period for that 1,000-plus page environmental impact statement that would otherwise have expired, I think, tomorrow. So that's
17th.
yeah, that's right, exactly. So that's good news. Or any other related specific issue at the airport, there are certainly plenty to choose from. Thank you very much.
Let me ask questions from the council. Anybody?
No, you go first.
Who?
You.
Well, you think I have questions, huh? First of all, one question. Peter, is there any size limitation on the airliners that can come into the county, based either on the runway or, for example, we're all familiar with the 737s and things like that. What about the 777s and 787s and A390s?
Yeah.
Can they come into the airport? Because that obviously has an effect on the number of passengers.
Right. So with respect to commercial airlines, the main restriction is that no matter what size plane they bring in, there can only be 240 passengers getting off and on a plane combined in any half-hour period. So, you know, if they want to fly with a lot of them, actually, Breeze is operating. You know, Breeze is a new airline that has come into the county and is operating longer trips from the airport than ever before. And part of how they're doing that is to utilize larger aircraft that can carry more fuel and purposefully not filling up the plane to manage the weight. Now, I don't know if, I don't know if those aircraft are bigger, but
They're Airbuses.
yeah, they are Airbuses,
Different
exactly.
than the Boeings.
But, the bottom line is you can't fill up a bigger plane if you're an airline. Now, the biggest planes that come into the airport are not airline planes. The biggest planes that come into the airport are privately chartered flights that are used by sports teams and diplomats coming in for the UN, et cetera. And I can't quote you, there is a weight limit relating to the runway's capacity, over which a plane needs to get permission, but that permission is, I can tell you, routinely granted. There is a second weight limit that would exclude the very largest planes from coming in, I believe, because of risk to the runway. That's what I'm saying. It's the infrastructure at the airport, and only the infrastructure at the airport, that limits how the airport is used. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I can get you some
Very
further.
well.
I can get
Thank
you
you.
some further details if you'd like.
Does the FAA have any authority whatsoever on the facilities that obviously the county provides, but because of their power over air traffic itself, do they have any say in the facilities that are being constructed or being prevented from being constructed by the county?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So first off, I should say I'm not an aviation attorney, and there's far more that I don't know than I know about the ins and outs of these rules. What I can tell you is this. Certainly the county has more authority and more autonomy regarding the facilities than pretty much any other aspect of the use of the airport. In order to take FAA grant money, which the county routinely does for larger capital investments in the airport, the county has to sign off on what are known as grant assurances. Those grant assurances further tie the county's hands in various ways. including, for example, the county pledges not to discriminate against airport users. So there's a concern that you build one hangar for one party, all the other parties can now point to that principle in your grant assurances to pressure you or pressure the county or potentially take the county to court to say, hey, we deserve the same consideration. Obviously, there's a lot of factors to consider in a situation like this, but it's a real concern that constrains the county's freedom of action with respect to the facilities that it would otherwise own and control. And there are certainly plenty of other grant assurances that can touch upon those types of choices the county would.
Is that part of the issue with Millionaire?
It is. The county Airport Advisory Board released a letter of recommendation to the county last month on Millionaire. One of the main
Why don't you just briefly tell the audience what is Millionaire?
Yeah,
As
thank you.
opposed to somebody with a lot of money.
Right. Well, it's an aptly named private company that operates what's known as a fixed base. It's known as a fixed-based operator, but that doesn't explain much. It operates a private terminal and facilities at the airport that it uses as a private company, including hangars, including tie-down parking spots for airplanes, including acting as a gas station for private planes at the airport. So it is one of several that operate at the airport currently. So that's Millionaire. It has taken the lead in recent years in attempting to take older infrastructure and replace that infrastructure with not only newer but bigger infrastructure. And the prior administration, during the prior administration, the county approved a enlarged terminal facility and hangar, and now it's proposing to take down an older but still operable hangar for light planes, small planes, and build over it a much bigger hangar for large private jets. Now I've lost track of the question, but I think we answered it.
I think you did pretty well. Can you also touch base on because it does involve airport land, the Westchester Joint Waterworks? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I'll, at the risk of wading into a controversy that really I'm not involved in, what I can share is this. There's land on the west side of the airport that's furthest away from our town, in Purchase and near the reservoir, that's wooded. And it's sort of a buffer zone currently between the private fixed base operators that I was referring to on the far side of the airport. There are some, by the way, on our side as well. But between them and Purchase Street and the rest of the community there. And there's also a Quaker meeting house that's located in that buffer zone. And my understanding is the county is now deciding, has offered in principle, and is now deciding whether to follow through and give some of that land, that wooded land now, to Westchester Joint Waterworks to build a water filtration plant. And in exchange, the county would receive other wooded land bordering a different part of the airport. I can't give you any insight as to the county's decision-making process or where the timetable is on that, other than I was told it's under consideration. And of course, there are environmental reviews that are going on as well. I would just point out this. The water that will, because I think it was of some comfort to me to know this, and so I hope it can be of some comfort to other residents of the town of Rye whose water comes at least in part indirectly through Westchester Joint Waterworks. And that is this. While there is a state order mandating Westchester Joint Waterworks put in a water filtration plant, to the best of my knowledge, it is not because of anything wrong with the water as it is currently. The same water from the same reservoir is currently flowing without filtration to New York City and many other communities in southern Westchester, and has been for decades and decades. My understanding, and this is, again, secondhand from attorneys involved in the case, is that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, that controls the reservoir and the water system and has this waiver from, that says it, from the federal government, that says it does not have to filter this water, the water is fine enough as is. They control the reservoir and the watershed. Westchester Joint Waterworks has a contract with DEC that allows it to take water from that reservoir, but they don't own the reservoir, they don't own the watershed, and were something to be detected, there's very little they could do on their own to, were something negative to be detected, there's very little that Westchester Joint Waterworks could do on their own. And so, based on that limited control, the state, through an abundance of caution, said you should be able to filter your water. So I just, again, I can't swear to any of that, but I have been speaking to people who are directly involved in the case, and I believe I'm relaying accurate information.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that it's an interesting issue. I think that since it's on airport land, it's something that I assume the Airport Advisory Board would also at some point get involved in.
We do receive updates.
Yeah.
We do.
All right. Let me go on to what your suggestions are. I like the idea of working together. I know that Rybrook has and has had for many years a very active airport committee. I'm not sure how the town itself fits in. Jill is our airport person, but I don't know that she has that much to do because your committee is so active. But I think that what we need to do, and tonight is not the night for that. We should discuss this informally. You should speak to Portchester and the entities together, Rybrook and Portchester, which are the constituent villages working with the town as a group, should be able to form something that may be larger than what the Rybrook committee is today. And obviously, I don't know if you've approached Mamaroneck. Of course, the village of Mamaroneck has the Rye Neck portion, which is part of the town of Rye, which Lindsay represents essentially. And I don't know if you've had any airport discussions with the Mamaroneck people. Planes certainly fly over them, so.
Right. So thank you. Good suggestions all. I have had some discussions with the village of Portchester. Obviously I can't speak for them, but I have some reason to feel optimistic that they will take some action to organize an advisory group there as well. I'd like to think that the best should not be the enemy of the good. And while ultimately I share your vision of some maybe umbrella group, we have the Rye Town Parks Commission, as somewhat of a model in the sense of intermunicipal.
Cooperation?
Yes, I'll use that word. I'm glad you used that word. But obviously it can happen. But it's certainly it would certainly be a simple and I think a positive first step if the town Portchester, Rye, Brook. I have yet to reach out to Mamaroneck, but I absolutely will. That's something that you have control over, that could happen quickly. And if ultimately that yields to a larger, better approach, then fantastic. But the fact of the matter is there are serious issues and decisions that will be made at the county level on the airport that could impact what happens there for decades to come in the coming months. And so I would humbly suggest that this is the time to settle for the good and then work towards the
Peter,
best.
the only reason I'm raising it is anybody that's on a town airport committee is going to be a resident of either Rybrook or Portchester. There's no separate town entity out there that does not encompass Rybrook and Portchester, as well as the Rye-Neck section of Mamaroneck.
But what we can do
All true.
is what we do with the Sustainability Committee, and we can be the framework that brings these communities together to talk
That's why,
and present a united front.
Pam, that's exactly what I'm getting at, and why we need to talk offline and not necessarily to discuss it in a meeting, but in a roundtable situation with the appropriate interests involved doing it. Because
Yep.
I think we're all on the same page. It's just a question of what form it will take.
Right. Understood. And I agree. If something's happening at the airport, my feeling is we should have some sort of machinery in place so that all of the municipal leaderships representing the affected residents in whether it be the villages or the town, can be efficiently and timely informed, and then respond and ideally speak with either one voice or harmonious voices, and do the same with our counterparts in other towns around us. I mean, it's the town of North Castle, the town of Newcastle, the town of Mount Pleasant, and the town village of Harrison. All of them are essentially at your level of government. And so, to have
Do they each have an airport committee of some kind?
not
Each
all of them, not all of them.
Well, I can take one step myself. All of the entities that you've just mentioned, all of the towns, the supervisors meet on a regular basis, and I can raise it with each of those supervisors and discuss whether there could be any kind of an umbrella type organization that we could set up.
I think that would be a fantastic initiative. It's a wonderful idea. And any way that I or the Village Airport Advisory Council can be of help, we would love to be.
All right, very good. Anything from the council? Otherwise, Peter, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. Very much appreciated.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. It's very exciting.
It's enthralling.
So sorry.
All right, moving on. Resolutions. First resolution is appointing Gordon Casement as our acting town assessor. As most of you know, and people watching this meeting who don't know, our assessor of approximately 10 years, Denise Knauer, resigned, and her last day was February the 10th. Gordon has been our senior appraiser for, how long, Gordon?
Almost 6 years.
Almost 6 years now, and he has got the educational qualifications to be an assessor. And so, resolution on tonight is to appoint Gordon as our acting assessor, and the town will be conducting a search for a permanent assessor. The process has already started, and we fully expect Gordon will be one of our applicants, and look forward to moving forward. So, Gordon, do you want to say anything? Or should we, let's let's appoint you first. May I have a motion and a second? May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Are there any comments or additions, anything? No? Please call the roll. Call the roll.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Please
I
call
was
the
waiting for
roll.
him to say something. Okay, Councilperson Jaffe,
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod,
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Now, Gordon, would you like to say something?
Sure. I guess thank you for the opportunity to serve the town as the acting assessor and during this interim vacancy. I'm confident that the seasoned and very knowledgeable staff that we have there will get done and take care of what is needed during this interim period, and look forward to moving on beyond that as a permanent place. As soon as we finish our STAR filings, we will be focusing entirely on getting the next tentative roll, which comes out June 1st.
We're all excited about that, getting that tentative rollout.
Yes, indeed. So thank you. Feel free to reach out to me anytime at the office or phone calls. You know, that's what we're there for. We always tell the people, we are civil service workers. We're there for the people, and that includes the board. So
Thank you,
By all
Gordon.
means.
Appreciate it.
Want to make sure you have the resources.
resources you need as well to
thank
do
you.
the job.
I will do that.
Congratulations. It's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Hope. Our next, this is assessment business for most of the rest of the meeting. A resolution retaining Edie McCarthy, McCarthy Consulting Services for 1 year as our consultant regarding assessment matters. Edie has acted in that capacity for, I think it's about 2 years, am I correct? Her consulting agreement expired on December the 31st of 2022, and this is a renewal of that. And McCarthy, Edie will present additional services, essentially working with Gordon and the assessment staff on matters that may come up that are in need of consultation in that regard. And of course, I know that Gordon has worked with Edie in the past. She's well-known in the assessment community. And the contractual amount has not changed from previous. Any questions?
Is there a not to exceed?
I don't see,
There's nothing in the agreement.
Or in the resolution that names a number.
okay, and do we have, I mean, obviously we have money budgeted this year to cover her costs, so,
Well, we haven't changed that from last year, so we were certainly able to cover her under last year's.
contractual services.
Correct.
But now we're looking to, because of the situation, use her more.
Right, which had not been anticipated when we were budgeting for 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how much we paid her last year for the whole year, roundabout?
I'd have to look up
Okay.
how much we paid her last year. It was a minimal amount, I would think, last year, because there was not a lot
Okay.
of work.
We usually call on Edie when there's a crisis of some kind.
No, I just, like I said, it's open-ended, so that was my,
Yeah, but I don't think that, in this kind of a contract, I don't think there's a real problem, because we don't use the services that much. It's not at a really high hourly rate, like, sometimes with engineering and things like that. It's not even as much as we pay Jeff.
That's for sure.
Okay,
we
if
pay
no-
Jeff?
Nothing further. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe? Yes. Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. The next resolution is to reappoint Joan Feinstein of Rye to serve as a member of the Town of Rye Board of Assessment Review. I think everybody knows Joan. Former mayor of Rye, former trustee, former school board member and president, and she has served as in the unexpired term of the late Milt Meiskin upon his resignation from the board. Now that term is up. It actually expired on September 30th, 2022. And now we have a new assessment year, and this is an appointment that comes at the recommendation of the Village of Rye. As many of you know, other than the member appointed from Rye Neck, both the Village of Portchester and the Village of Rye have varying roles in recommending the members of the Board of Assessment Review from those communities. So obviously this one is at the, there's a resolution attached recommending the reappointment of Joan Feinstein by the Rybrook Board of Trustees, dated February 14th. Any questions, comments?
No.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make the motion.
What?
Then we'll take the roll.
Want me to call the roll?
Would you like
I thought I
to?
was gonna sneeze, I don't know why.
Do you want to sneeze first and
Do
then
you want
call
me to
the
do
roll? We'll wait for your sneeze.
Oh, okay, it's not ready yet.
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod, Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
and Councilperson Jackson,
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Now we've come to the fun part. The town establishing Homestead Base Proportions. We have a series of resolutions. They're both basically the same. The numbers are different. One is for the town itself, one for the Village of Rye, one for the Village of Portchester, one for the Blindbrook School District, one for the Portchester School District, and one for the Rye Neck School District. As I say, the numbers are different, and we established these homestead base proportions because since our first revaluation, I believe in 2004, we have a separate tax rates for our commercial property, which is non-homestead, and our residential property, which is homestead. So these resolutions establish those proportions for each of the respective communities that comprise the town. The reason that this is done is because after revaluation, there is often a shift in value from the commercial to the residential. And this essentially protects the homeowner from an undue increase in their tax burden. As I said, I can't emphasize this enough, the proportions in each community are different. And, for an example, we have a chart, the board has a chart. For example, the Village of Portchester rate, the homestead proportion is 50, the non-homestead 49, which is considerably different than the village of Rybrook, which has a homestead of 78 and a non-homestead of 22. That obviously reflects the amount of commercial versus residential property in each community. And the rates also vary between the school districts, or I should say among the school districts and the villages. So that's why it was done. Does anybody, have I said it correctly, Gordon?
You did very well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I approve.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the board? Questions from the board? Hopefully questions that can be answered if,
I'm just curious, the higher, I guess, non-homestead rate in Portchester, is that due to commercial property?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, as you can see downtown Portchester has a lot of non-residential properties as compared to a more suburban Rybrook. You can see the number difference.
And yet it flipped for the school district for Portchester. Correct? So homestead has gone up and non-homestead has gone down. If I'm reading it right.
Yes.
we can see that the school districts are relatively constant with the village of Portchester, not a lot of difference, some difference. But Lindsay's correct. It obviously reflects that Portchester is a more urbanized area with more commercial property than, for example, Rybrook is.
And then Rybrook, or Blindbrook, the non-homestead going down to 12, that's King Street? You can see the. I don't
Pardon me?
know. I don't, Rybrook, or Blindbrook, going from 14.8 in 2021 to 12.98 in 2022. And that's going over to the homestead.
Yeah, I mean, these calculations are complicated, and we actually just received the final calculations today, and the reason for that is they have to be verified by the state of New York. And we don't publish these and approve them until the state says, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So that's where, if you want to see a big difference, look at the beginning, back in 2007, for example, where the village of Portchester was at basically 61% homestead and 39% non-homestead, to today, the 60 became 50 and the 39 became 49. So there's been a shift over, the last 12 years or so. And, that reflects, development, land values, et cetera. So, but as I say, these calculations ultimately are approved by the state. Any other questions? If not, we're going to take them one at a time. I'd rather do them all at a time, but I think we need a separate vote. And I'm not going to call the roll on this. I think we'll do a voice vote. The first one is Resolution 6.4, establishing the Homestead Base Proportion for the Town of Rye. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is establishing the Homestead Base Proportion for the village of Rybrook. All in favor? Aye. Next one is establishing a Homestead Base Proportion for the village of Portchester.
Make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Establishing a Homestead Base Proportion for the Blindbrook School District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Establishing a Homestead Base Proportion for the Portchester School District.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And establishing Homestead Base Proportion for the Rye Neck School District.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, none opposed to any of them. Thank you all very much. Our next resolution is authorizing the appointment of Brian Mortimer Sullivan as a consultant for the Town of Rye Sustainability Committee for event planning. Brian is a successor to our very wonderful Melissa Greco, and I think, Pam, you should handle this as Sustainability Chair.
I had the pleasure of meeting Brian at the Portchester Marina in November on a freezing day. Very hastily pulled together community cleanup because Debbie and I realized we had no Melissa. And this is now a tradition in the town and the municipalities that we're going to do this event. And I spent a good afternoon with Brian talking about the environment, talking about the work he's doing with the village of Portchester, talking about his goals. And I then called Debbie and said, I think we do have a new Melissa on our hands. I'd like you to meet Brian. I would invite you to come up, Brian, and talk a little bit about your passion for sustainability and what appealed to you about this position. But what Brian is going to do is create the lacework, tie the knots between all the different municipalities. We have the villages, we've got the school districts, we have all these different pieces and parcels of groups that partake every year in these ever-growing green events that we do. And you really need someone to run the engine on the event and to make sure everyone is doing things in appropriate timeline, make sure that we're doing it with everyone's safety in mind, that there are waivers, that there are supplies. And he seems like a very organized gentleman, and we're very excited to bring him on board in this position. So, Brian.
Thank you, Pam, for that introduction. Yeah, it's really not much more complicated than that. I've served on the Beautification Commission in Portchester for 2 years now. In that time, I ran our cleanup site at the dog park. And yeah, I really suppose it's just that much. I want to see this improve, I want to see this continue, and hopefully see it expand in coming years. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. I
Thank
know
you.
you told Debbie you have an interest in local governance, so this is a good way to be the connector and run an important piece of one of these committees.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to retain the services of John Zicka as our on-call property management and maintenance services. Debbie, you want to take this one, please? Explain.
Yes.
I think we all know who John Zicka is. Just tell us.
So
what we're doing.
intermittently, it's important that contracts with the town go out to bid to make sure that we are gaining the best services for the best price for the people of the town of Rye. And it had been about too long since the on-call handyman contract had been out for bid. So that is what we've done. And we posted this bid in a number of places, and we had more than one proposal, and Mr. Zicka submitted a proposal and is the best value and the best price for the
Thank you.
town. So I recommend, based on his stellar history working with the town, that that I be permitted to re-engage him in that role.
Very good. Comments from the council?
I think that Mr. Zicka has been part of this town for a long time. He's done great work. He's stepped in some of our darkest hours or most confusing hours when things go wrong, and I can't be happier to renew this and continue to work with him. I think this is amazing.
I remember Tommy's we greenified our landscaping here at Crawford. He's like, we get to keep John Zicka, right? So, I mean, he does fantastic work for us.
John's good people. He works hard. He's there when you need him. I know he gets along well with Vic. So I think he's a good asset for the community.
He's been known to drive out in giant pickup trucks when we're at the African American cemetery doing cleanups and just bring heaps of stuff back and forth on a freezing weekend day. He's great. He does anything that comes for him for us.
Listen, we better not talk any more good stuff about him, because next time his contract price is gonna go up.
Well, remember, his wife has to be the one to email us about it, so.
Okay. All right. Motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
This time, call the roll. I like to call the roll when we're spending money.
Right. Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod? Councilperson Nardi?
Definitely yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. A similar resolution for VFR contracting for on-call plumbing services. Debbie? wanna-
This, and I will also invite Vic Federico to say a few words if he cares to. Once again, it is appropriate for us to put contracts out for bid. VFR has provided on-call plumbing services in the past. That was the firm that did the plumbing that helped renovate this building. We've been very pleased with their work, and their proposal is solid and the best price, and so I'm recommending that I be authorized to renew. Vic, is there anything you want to add?
Vic Federico, Director of Grounds and Facilities. Tommy knows to have a on-call plumber is not easy to get. Kenny, who runs VFR, answers my calls whenever I call him. So to have him on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is important.
I like the price. The prices are very reasonable, especially after hours. It may look high, but it's actually not. So the only question I had is a journeyman plumber. I see has no rate for a journeyman. So I imagine he's just gonna, anytime there's a problem, he's just gonna have a licensed plumber come. I don't know if he's gonna have a helper with him or not.
Usually they do.
They
Usually
do.
it's just 3 people.
I would have liked to know what the journeyman rate would be, but, I mean, he's got good rates here, so to me, it's okay.
Tommy would have charged 5% more.
Yeah, but
I
this,
probably would.
this rate includes either one guy or 30 guys.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's per hour, but I imagine that's one plumber coming. You know, it's per plumber, I would imagine. You know, he's not gonna send 2 guys and, you know, usually it'd be a mechanic and a journeyman or a
No,
helper.
that's not what it says. It says $182 an hour. Is there, I don't see the attached RFP response, Debbie.
Oh, the proposal's not there?
No.
No.
The price quotes are here
Where?
from Kevin.
Yeah.
Keep on
Oh,
going. Yeah.
did I not hit the right button?
Request for proposal, RFP, price quotes.
Okay,
due.
got it.
But,
I
Yeah.
only hit the
and
reso.
as Tommy pointed out, the licensed plumber per hour.
The licensed plumber per hour is fine, and the overtime rate is fine. But if he's gonna bring an additional, like, an help, because usually they're gonna bring a mechanic and a helper, they very rarely bring out 2 mechanics. So, and that would be per man. I doubt very much they're gonna send 2 guys out, and it's only gonna be $182 for just, you know, it would be double that. That's why usually you bring a mechanic and a helper, and then there'll be a helper's rate.
Tom? Yeah, do you want to hold this?
It might be best for us just to verify and.
Yeah, I'd just like to know what the helper rate would be. I mean, I have no problem with the mechanics. The mechanic rate is fine. But very seldom, when you're gonna have an emergency, because I know from my experiences, if I had somebody come and I got water coming through the ceiling, I'm not going by myself. I wanna get it done, I'm gonna bring somebody with me.
Do you want to pass this and then get clarification? Or do you want to hold this? Because the journeyman plumber does not have a rate on it.
No.
So to me, that's free. Now, if
Yeah.
it's not free,
But it's not gonna be
if
free.
it's not free, we really need to
Because
know.
he's gonna have his journeyman, he's gonna get a lower rate than mechanic, and his after-hours rate is gonna be, still, it's gonna be after hours, but it's gonna be,
Well, do you know what's
Time and
happened
a
in the past? Have we used him prior and had a situation?
we've been using him right along.
And what have we been
Do we have any
paying?
sense of what we've been paying? If there are you said, you'll bring X amount of people, are we paying?
Usually it's the one price, usually.
okay. If it's been,
Okay, listen. Do
Yeah.
that. But let's pass this because
yes,
that's a reasonable price according to Tommy.
Yes.
More than reasonable.
it is more than reasonable.
So, and since Tommy's expecting we would pay more if there's a second person, if we're not paying more, that's even better.
Yes, that's even better.
You don't even have to
We wanna
suggest
pass
it.
it
No.
before.
Okay.
Before he changes his mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Catches one.
Okay. Did we have a motion and a second yet?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please, Hope.
Councilperson Jaffe? Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Our next resolution is approving Pallet Pro as a painting contractor for both the Continental Manor footbridge and the Crawford Park Pavilion.
Pallet Pro is a local company, correct? They're located in Portchester.
Yeah, they've done work with us
Yeah.
before. In
Plenty
fact,
of times. They're great, and I love to see companies from the town.
I would also say that they participated in community service
Yep.
programs here.
They painted the benches
That's
out here.
exactly right. Yep, they helped the high school students paint the benches.
Yes.
The
So
Continental,
basically, they painted the bench.
the Continental footbridge, that was my first project when I was superintendent of highways.
you don't want to talk about that, though, do you, Tommy?
Huh?
You don't want to talk about that?
No, that was,
Especially about the Coast Guard?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that was,
They're affordable,
yes.
very, in comparison to our high bidder.
Yeah, the prices are very good. Okay, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please, Hope.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Aye. Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. And that concludes our resolution portion. Reports. Gordon, do you have anything to add? You don't have to. Just do you want to? No? Okay. Thank you. Crawford report is Camille on? I know she's not well. Did she come Zoom? There she is. Hi, Camille. Welcome.
Everyone, apologies for not being there in person, but at least I think I have the information you're looking for. I'm going to ask to share my screen. May I?
One second.
I think I got it.
Direct from the other computer.
I believe I have it.
Yep.
Wonderful. Just going to click on the slideshow. Well, that's not really nice. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? That I have to either restart the program or close it? Not sure why.
Oh, restart, Patrick is suggesting you restart.
Okay.
Just the program, not her computer.
No problem.
Is it opening back up, Camille?
Yes, it is. And I'm just. Mhm. It's opening. Okay, I think we're almost there.
Worst comes to worst, you can email it to someone to upload.
Okay, I'm actually, I show it, do you see it?
No, not yet.
Hit your share screen again. Until it hit share screen.
Did you hear that? Share screen?
Yes.
There it is.
Almost there. Okay, so, thank you, everybody, for your patience. This actually is, the first slide I'm going to show you is basically what I have shown you in our past reports. It reflects the cumulative activity for, in this case, the first 6 weeks of 2023. And also, as we talked about last year, we're now going to be able to compare our current numbers to the same time a year ago. So in terms of the number of inquiries, last year we had 49 by the middle of February. I don't know what you mean by. Okay, sorry, Siri's butting in here. Last year we had 49 inquiries. This year we have 64. So that's I'm happy with that. It's about a 31% increase. And just as a side note, the average number of inquiries we are receiving each week is 11. Okay, if we go to bookings, last year we had 41 bookings at this point in time, and this year we have 87. So again, another tremendous increase, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100+%. And these are the fees waived, and we'll get into this in the next slide in a little more detail. But what I wanted to show here was that so far this year, we have booked 30 events where the fees will be waived. And I'm bringing this up because the school system has really been big fans of Crawford, and they are really utilizing our space, which is great. Any questions before I move on to the second slide?
This is year over year based on same time period last year?
Exactly, the first 6 weeks of 2022.
So we've seen 100% growth in the
Yes.
same 6 weeks.
Yes.
How do we end up with more bookings than we have inquiries?
Because the inquiries are from January 1 to February 16th. The bookings, this is the bookings overall for the year so far. So as of yesterday, we have 30 bookings from nonprofits, municipals, et cetera. Just it correlates with the bookings, the 87 bookings that we have in the second square.
Are the inquiries, are we getting multiple bookings from some inquiries, or are there bookings that came in 2022 for calendar year 2023, which would account for the increase in the larger number of bookings than inquiries?
Correct. The inquiries are just as of this January, what we've received in 2023.
Okay.
And the bookings are what we have on the books, which many were booked last year. Okay. And also remember, the 41 in 2022, that was a COVID time. So through March, it was pretty slow for us. Okay. Move on.
As we get into the spring, when the bookings picked up last year.
They probably mid-April to May. Okay, so as requested and as promised, we're going to be looking at the revenue dollars a bit differently than we did in the past. Tonight's report is a work in progress. I would like your feedback with regard to how I'm showing you the information, as well as is this the information you are looking for? And before I get into the numbers, I just want to thank Dave Burns, who very patiently provided guidance with regard to both terminology and content. Okay, so the first column, January revenue received. This is money, any monies we've received as of January 1st of this year. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. So it's the revenue that has come in. Now that could be for events, it could be security deposits, et cetera. So it's the number that is minus the security deposits and the gratuities. Okay. Questions on that?
Our employees for the events, because that has to be deducted as well to show what our profit would be.
And yes, we are getting to that.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
No, that's okay, no problem. And you'll see that, because I know the questions that you may have, I'll hopefully be able to answer, but a lot of the numbers that I'm showing you the numbers are very fluid for the events because we have people providing a deposit that we're going to hold on the books maybe for a year and a half. We can't really charge any labor against that event until it actually happens. So I'm going to walk you through where we are. And this is January, based on Dave Burns' recommendation. When we talk about revenue, we're going to be doing it month by month. So this is by month end of January of this year. So the second bar, which is $2,807, this is event revenue. Okay, this is money that we have received for events that we executed in January, minus the deposits and the gratuities. Questions on that one, on that category? I'll go through it again. The $2,800 basically is for the 3 private events we executed in January, minus the deposit, of course, and the gratuity. Make sense?
Yep, and the $1,927 would be the,
Yep, you're jumping over there, Lindsay.
sorry. No, I'm
That's
just,
okay.
so that's the January executed event fees minus
Yes,
security, deposit and gratuity, minus event labor.
yes.
Okay.
And that's $1,927 that basically is ours for the towns. Okay. Is that an easy way for me to report these numbers to you? Are these the numbers that you would like to see on a monthly basis?
I'm happy with the way they're broken down.
Okay.
And I also want to tell you that it's a very pretty graph.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for taking the time and doing this.
That's okay. I think it's going to be helpful all around.
Yeah.
My only concern, though, is when we look at the revenue at the end of the year, when we were talking about our budget, we were basing it on how we reported last year. So I think we might have to have some offline conversations about how that's going to look as we move forward. And then the last column, it's an eye opener. We have had 8 events in January where the fees were waived. Now, so that number is starting to build again, but certainly that was expected. The positive thing about a lot of the activity we're receiving from the schools is we don't need to provide additional staffing for them, because it's typically between 8:30 and 3 o'clock. And there are enough of us, in the mansion that, our staff is able to do the setup, do the breakdown, help with anything that they need. So there's a savings there for us. Thoughts?
Hold on, if there's any question on your part as to comparing your methodology this year from last year, Dave Burns will be happy to iron all of that out for you with minimal effort on your part. And maybe we'll have him do it
Dave and I
during
kind of
tax
had the
season.
conversation. We started it anyway.
I'm sorry, continue.
Okay, no problem. But that's everything I have to report with regard to the numbers for this month. Okay. Then just want to go on to the first of our 3 winter concert series. It was almost sold out. It was really, really wonderful. We had a total of 70 people in attendance, 22 of them. And I found this a really interesting number, that 22 of the people actually purchased their tickets at the door. So I was very glad we had that option. I was glad we had enough seats for the 22 people that did not purchase online in advance. So we're sort of gearing up for the same type of numbers for the second and for the third concerts. And if you have the time, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. The music was beautiful. In fact, I had a video which I was going to play for you, but I couldn't quite get to the presentation in time. But hopefully next month, when we talk about the second one, I'll be able to share with you how beautiful the music really, really was at this event. So mark your calendars. Sunday, March 5th is the next one. And then April 16th is going to be a pretty incredible event. It's going to be all the cellos. So there's 8 cellos that are going to be performing on that day. So it should be pretty spectacular. Okay.
Just one thing. I think your numbers are a little bit off on the slide. 58 and 22 is 80, not 70.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Thank you very
Audience.
much.
She's technically correct because it says total audience is upward of 70, which 80 is upwards of 70. If you wanted to be technical on it.
Technically, yeah, but I like the number 80 more than 70.
But then if she put 80 there, it would be wrong because it wasn't upward of 80, it was 80.
No, we could eliminate the plus.
Right. Two questions. Two questions.
I just want to say one thing. I was there as well as Debbie, and it was a wonderful concert. And I have to tell you, the acoustics there are absolutely unbelievable. I heard one of the audience members saying that it sounded as good as Philharmonic Hall. The acoustics are totally incredible there. And, you know, just by happenstance, I don't know how, but I was sitting in the back row, and I felt, not only could I hear everything clearly, I could distinguish the individual instruments. There was a quintet, and I could hear them. It was just absolutely marvelous the way it sounded.
Would you like to hear a little bit?
Oh, thank you, Vic.
Vic's got it.
Yes, it was his clip that I was going to be using.
I don't know if we're gonna get the
How long
full-
was the program?
An hour and a half with a short intermission. And while we're waiting for that, we've already sold 13 tickets for the March 5th event, so that's
Even-
ahead of
even-
where we
even over
were
the
for the
microphone,
first
you can
event.
hear how brilliant it is.
Yeah.
And then Camille, what did we base our numbers on? What attendance? Because it seems like you busted through that.
Well, we originally thought we would be able to accommodate 100, but as it turns out, if we want our guests to be comfortable, we need to give them the nicer chairs, the more comfortable chairs, our conference chairs. We could squeeze in, 100, maybe a few more with the folding chairs, but I don't know that it would be as enjoyable. So for this next event, we're putting the maximum at 80 seats.
Do we know for attendance how many people were from the town and where exactly in the town they were from?
That I don't have yet. That's part of the survey that we're doing, so we'll be able to report that at a later date. And most likely, Lindsay, what I'll do is for that type of information, I'm going to compile it and report out of all 3 concerts when the series is done. That's agreeable.
Else, we discussed, I think, having a sliding scale of resident rate, and then because the Philharmonic has such a outreach list, Lindsay, you're like, should there be a second non-resident rate?
Well, if I might
Yeah.
because we started off trying to price it that way, and it just became unfeasible.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
No,
could just not,
Which
we
is
couldn't do it.
Which is fine.
Okay,
I just
that's
like
fine.
to hear that the residents use it. That you
This
know.
was our first event. We're learning.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
the idea of
yeah.
having a lower online price, and then coming to the door, you pay a little extra at the door.
Yeah.
That's, because that's
We
what
can do
most,
that.
most places do that to begin with. You buy the tickets ahead of time, this way you've got a basic head count, and then anybody after, they gotta pay a little extra because they didn't do it online and give you a head count. Yeah.
And then should you hit more than 80, it becomes standing room. Camille, I'm just looking at the pictures and squinting, but it looks like you did make accessibility accommodations there for the people in the front row.
Yes, we were very aware, because we had also got a couple of calls to make sure that the mansion was, ADA compliant. And so, yes, we were expecting them, and we were able to accommodate them with no problem.
That was the whole basis of our renovation, right, Gary? We had. How many meetings did you and I sit in with Westchester Disabled on the Move and?
Also, I know all about codes, especially for audiences and stuff like that. It's a 4-foot aisle. Doors have to be open, clear with also a 4-foot aisle. The chairs have to be 18 inches apart for comfort. So we made sure of that too.
Yep.
Do we have a capacity limit downstairs of the fire company?
It's 393.
300 and, oh, okay. I think we have plenty of room, okay.
It's like the county of Westchester set our limit at Oakland Beach at like 8,900. You know, when the beach gets crowded at about 1,500, so.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Okay, I don't know how we'd ever fit in 393 down there.
Like wooden soldiers.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
that's good.
Is that it, Camille? Thank you.
That's it for tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
much.
thank you, Camille.
Thank you. See you next month.
Okay.
Okay.
Vic, report from you?
Okay, first of all, this beautiful winter we're having
What winter?
is allowing us to do a ton of work outside. So if you get a chance during the day, take a walk around, see how many areas are cleaned out now. You can see to the wall at Rye Hills Park. You can see different areas. We've been cleaning out a lot of the invasive vines, which we've worked on through a grant in the past, but the grant ran out. So now our men are going out daily because it's so beautiful out, and we're getting quite a bit accomplished. Last Wednesday, the RFP for the cottage was listed and went out. Today, Gary, Gianfrancisco, and myself were to meet the contractors at the house. 4 of them called up and couldn't make it. The 5th never showed. So they're going to be doing it on their own, checking the house out, and they will be getting their RFPs back by, I think it was April 30th. Or was it March 30th? I'm not sure exactly, but
I thought it was March.
March 30th, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm not quite, sure. Gary, our supervisor, myself, and Anthony Zano from the engineering firm walked the roadways here at Crawford Park last week, and a paving RFP will be written up soon for us to see, and then I would believe it will also be going out. Gary gave me a little bit of news, the Butler Building. We're working hard with Rybrook. Gary G now is involved, and he's talking with the person from, the company is known as Carport Central. And they're just starting talking about the slab especially, because the slab has to be spec to New York specs, and the company, where most of these companies are outside New York State, so he needs to know what New York specs are. One more thing, I'm glad, Pam and Debbie took interest in something I brought up about a week and a half ago. February 1st is a national day, but nobody knows what it is. It's National Girls and Women in Sports Day. 7 years ago, I started a program in Yonkers that's still running now, and it's the empowerment of young girls and women, not only in sports, but in life. We're going to have a short meeting tomorrow, and I hope this and everybody will get involved with this, because I believe it's a national day. Everybody should know about it. And one other thing, we've been coming up with a few ideas. We were thinking about a container garden to be put on here, community garden. After talking with the culinary teacher downstairs who works with children, we're looking at possibly, or thinking about making this a culinary teaching garden, where it's farm to table, so the kids will grow their own vegetables and learn how to cook with them. It's just a thought, but I just figured I'd throw it out here.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, where do you want to put it, whereabouts?
Okay, I had a meeting with the Friends of Crawford Park, their wildflower garden out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna meet and talk about relinquishing half of it to us.
Have to.
We had spoken about doing container gardens for people in the community who, you know, aligned to what PC is doing, but who don't have yards, who don't have space. And would that grow from something like this?
That could, yes, very easily,
'Cause that would help with food insecurity in the area as well.
yes.
I rather see this as a first step in
Yeah,
that
first step.
exact
Yeah.
direction. If we have children who are learning how to grow their food and then cook their food, that can absolutely expand into their parents' learning
Mhm.
and more
Right.
programming.
And working with our lovely local news to spread the information about it.
My question would be, for tilling tilling the garden, could do it like, for kids to get community service, get high school kids, junior high school kids to help so they can get community service and you till the garden?
Well, we're looking to make this a container garden, so we're gonna
Containers?
raise it.
So you're gonna
Yes.
have raised ones?
Yes,
Okay.
and we're gonna knock everything down there and create walkways and,
You mean the mugwort you're gonna knock down?
yes,
Yeah.
the mugwort that grows.
There's no milkweed, right?
We have milkweed growing in a few areas on the property, yes, and it is a native.
We would never get rid of that.
Not back
No,
there,
we would plant
no.
more.
That's why.
Yeah, no.
I asked.
Yeah, we were
No.
actually, thank you, working with the county
Yep.
to move
Yeah.
these milkweed gardens over. They won't go anywhere.
Do you have an idea, or do you have somebody in mind who's gonna build these?
Our,
Or you're gonna buy them pre-built?
Tom, you can build them.
we do have help.
I built my mother's, that's enough.
He knows how to do it.
I know how to do them.
What is our?
Yeah, it could be. You know, you can, yes, that's what I'm trying to get, like, you get them as kits. You get them in kits, they come in different sizes, different lengths, and they take a little bit doing to put together, but
Yeah.
they're not all that difficult to put together.
No, I put them together, but I also have help.
Yeah.
Gary, what is our, she's not our prosecutor, she's yeah. Brandy's husband, Pericles, has volunteered to help work in this garden. And if you've been by his house,
I mean, they also are walking distance, so it's really
Yeah.
nice. And
Okay.
he's a very active member of this.
I like the idea, I think it's a great idea. I just want to see, I like to get more of the community involved, and I know high school kids need their, community credits.
right? Well, they
So-
can come and help us clear it out.
They can come
And
any
they
day.
can help
Vic's
build it.
got
They
plenty
can build
for
it.
them.
We could teach them to build
Yeah.
it.
That's the one thing
Exactly.
we know about Vic. He's got work for everybody.
You get the three high schools involved, Rye Neck, Rye Brook, and Portchester, and then you have, and I think it's a good way of getting Rye Neck involved too, to start coming to the park.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I-
we've emailed the guidance counselor there.
Yeah, and I would believe they have some trade courses there, and there's probably carpentry. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
we could
could
work it
be-
out.
We've
All
already
right.
reached out to Blind Brook and Portchester about the cleanup on the 28th. They're both interested in participating, and we actually have you would know, we have a program at Blind Brook High School over the last month of the year after the APs. The students have to find an internship and work for a month somewhere. So my daughter, weed whacked here, like that was her internship. But we actually have someone who's coming from Blind Brook and wants to work on green things.
Okay.
So it could very well be
That's great.
Yeah.
a project.
High schools are a great resource.
Yes, they are.
All right.
But
Vic,
Portchester
thank you
is
very much. Much appreciated.
very interested in doing more community service with us.
Good.
All right.
So,
Finance report. Nothing additional, okay.
I have a question. I have so many questions.
Is it a finance
It's for-
question?
No, well, kind of.
We
You're
passed
getting,
by, we're finished with Vic.
you went fast. You didn't let me do my question.
Okay, go ahead.
I got caught in on volunteers. Paving, when would you anticipate that being done? After the RFP? Because there are ulterior motives at play.
oh, definitely, we've talked about that. Gary and I and Anthony have talked about that. We would definitely look at the lowest, activity-wise time of the year. can't be done in the winter, can't be done, you know, late fall, so, we'd look, I would say, you know, we'd have to do it in the spring or in the fall. We would have soccer and stuff like that. We may have to close half the park and open the other half of the park as the entrance and the exit. You know, we're still discussing things like that.
Okay, I think I
What's in
floated
your
this by
mind?
you. I floated it by you. Amanda Timchak and I are already starting to work on Pride. And one of the things that we were thinking of doing, and I was going to ask Lindsay, if there's a rainbow walk anywhere in Westchester, because it would be really great to have all the students, because Amanda's already reaching out to students, create a rainbow walk here at Crawford. But Vic has said we need to be paid first.
Well, I thought we did do the pathway.
Oh, not the pathway.
Right.
Usually, I could show you a picture. Usually
Yeah.
it's a piece of pavement, a thick piece of pavement that goes across. So we would want one area that's in good shape that we could then create that sort of pathway.
Kind of a pedestrian crosswalk.
Yeah, let
Oh.
me see if I can get a picture.
So-
Well, we're not paving the entire Crawford Road because there's portions that were just paved in 2019. So those won't be touched.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're conducive to a rainbow walk, I don't know.
Call me tomorrow.
Yeah, let me see if I can
We
find a
can work
picture
it
to
out.
show you.
Listen, that's something we
can
could
work.
work out.
Yeah.
I think we're all in favor of doing that if we can.
Thank you.
I don't think it's a
That'll be
problem. I just said Davy. Davy's got nothing. Davy has nothing for us. I don't know if Nick is on. I don't think he is. But his report is
Submitted, but he.
submitted. Does he want to say anything?
Needs to remind
A reminder?
the Village of Rye Brook that the second installment of the village tax is due by the end of this month. That's number one. And then late letters have gone out for unpaid school taxes.
Yes, he mentioned
Okay.
that to me. And the town attorney has news also.
I have news for Dave. We just got $37,000.
Could you speak to the microphone, please?
Our early efforts to collect in-rem receivables that are 2 years old, these are liens now, they've gone to lien, is bearing fruit. We've received the first payment of just about $40,000 today by wire. And we're expecting, we have about 17 properties that are potentially going in REM, and I'm working on cutting that down before we have to file. So I'm expecting another couple of payments within the next week or so.
Anything else? Thank you. Hope your report is submitted. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, one more thing. The county mobile shredder will be coming to 222 Grace Church Street on March 11th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for all residents or anyone within the county.
Great.
Okay?
March 11th. Mark your
Right.
calendars. Get your
We'll
papers
have it
ready.
on the website as well, but March 11th.
Okay, great. Anything from the council? Any comments?
Nope.
Happy birthday, Tommy.
Oh,
Thank
Tom,
you.
it's your birthday.
And
Yeah.
save the date. Our next community cleanup is April 28th with a rain date of April 29th.
I think so.
I think so. So, okay.
Haven't seen the flyers yet.
Well, no, we're just starting planning.
Okay,
We have reconvened the committee.
Thank you, Pam.
okay.
The 29th is the Saturday, and the 30th is the Sunday. So the cleanup will be on the Saturday, the 29th, unless it is pouring rain, and then it will be on the 30th.
Thank you. And Vic, something we'd like to do is schedule work with Dave and schedule a springtime cleanup or some sort of event at the cemetery.
Dave Thomas. I
Have
thought
we,
you were
by the
looking
way,
at
have
Dave
we, have we,
Burns.
Other Dave, not Dave.
Guys, hold
You're
it.
welcome to rake with us.
Guys, hold it. Vic, have we done anything with regard to the monuments that fell?
No.
All right, we need to move on that. All right. If there's nothing else, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry.